I'm gonna be honest, I feel a little reticent to talk about one piece of this video, this story that I'm gonna share. Even though I've talked about this before in previous videos, in my old videos before I got rid of all those on YouTube, and I've talked about this on other social media platforms, there's still some tenderness or more emotional tenderness than before. But I'm not gonna hover there. In either case, we're just gonna keep pressing forward. There was a period of time in my life where I used alcohol as a way to numb. I did not want to feel any of my feelings. I did not want to process anything. I did not want to go back into the recesses of my past and my trauma, no matter how big or how small it was. I just did not want to deal with it. And so I used alcohol as a way to numb. And I knew that it was something that I needed to stop doing because it was not helping me. And I knew that it was ultimately a way to avoid the things that I really needed to address, but I didn't feel ready to address those things. There was a moment, and it was a series of moments, just as everything is in this healing work. It's not one thing, it's a multitude of things. There was a progression of time when I began to ask myself the question, do I want to continue living like this? Do I want to continue having this sort of behavior? The answer was no, I don't want to change anything. I knew that in order to make a change, I would have to do something different. I would have to get out of that rut that I was in. And I really didn't see the possibility. I didn't see any window of me creating something different than the pattern, the groove that I had already been accustomed to. But each and every day I would ask myself the same question, and each and every day the answer would be the same. And this went on for a long period of time. This was decades ago. Well, can I say decades? A decade and change, we'll say. A decade and change. There was this continual assessing and trying to see, is there some sort of opportunity? Is there something that is deep within me that's going to recognize, hey, we gotta make a change? And when I asked myself the question one day, the same question, do I want to change this behavior? Do I want to really truly make a change? And the answer was different. The answer was yes, I do want to make a change. I really got scared because I did not know what would come next. I didn't understand what type of work I was going to have to do. I didn't know what I was stepping into. I was very fearful of facing all of these things that I knew I had been avoiding. The feeling was that because I had been running away from it so long and kind of also creating more and more weight, more and more stuff to this bag that I had been carrying, I knew that once I stopped, or once I turned around, once I faced it, it was going to be this huge behemoth of a beast that I was going to have to address and deal with. And I knew that I couldn't address it all in one fell swoop. There's no way, that's not even possible. I was going to have to take this one piece at a time, which was going to take time. And to be really honest with you, I really just wanted to get to a place where I could work on this as quickly as possible. That's kind of been the start of my work in my healing and my starting with self, recognizing myself, working on myself was, okay, well, let's get down to it. Let's hurry up. Let's get through this stuff. And a lot of my practices that I was doing in the very beginning were just that. It was this expedited, let's hurry up and get the results. Let me do this because I don't want to deal with the shame. I don't want to deal with the guilt. I don't want to deal with really the internal embarrassment that I felt or the self-betrayal. So many different things that I was carrying that really I didn't need to carry. I took it on and I made it mine when I didn't need to. But in either case, I didn't know that. I also didn't know, and this is not an excuse. This is not sort of, I mean, I know that people talk about empaths and it's a lot of woo-woo information out there, but to be someone who is highly sensitive and attuned to everyone's emotions around you, it can get very, very muddied to where you don't know where you end and another person begins. And for many, many years, I did not know that. I was functioning as this sway of emotion all the time. Yes, there were a lot of things that I was stuffing down and that I was not tending to and recognizing. And there were also people that I was around that were on a lot of different swings of emotion. And I didn't have to physically be around these people. I could have conversations with them. I could think about them. I could see them in passing or whatever. And suddenly all of this stuff, even perfect strangers, I could be on a bus and interacting with somebody or just seeing something going down on a train or on a plane. I mean, very Dr. Seuss here. In either case, I would be around people, and if the person next to me was feeling this heightened depression or maybe this intense anger or a lot of frenetic energy, I would start to pick up on that without recognizing that I was picking up on their stuff. So I became the sponge that was absorbing it and not being very clear in that, oh, I'm just tacking on or I'm absorbing other people's stuff without recognizing whether it's mine or it's theirs. And that was a lot of stuff to handle. That was really, really difficult, really challenging. Didn't know what to do with it. And so one of the ways that I would deal with it was to numb, was to drink. Now, when I got to this place of asking myself the question, do I want to do something different? Do I want to change? And the answer was yes. Then it became, okay, help me. Help me. I need as much support. I need as much of the resources as I possibly can. Fortunately for me, and I really truly believe that nothing happens by sheer coincidence. I had been raised in an environment, in a household that spirituality was the foundation. And when I mean spirituality, I'm talking about meditation. I'm talking about mindfulness. I'm talking about understanding about energy body. All of these things were a part of my upbringing. And so I could now go back to these things that I had already learned with the ability to actually do it and apply it for my health, for my mental health, to save myself, to reclaim myself. That's not to say, though, like I was saying before, there was this expedited energy. There was, I think, some spiritual bypassing. I know there was some spiritual bypassing that was going on because I just didn't want to sit in the pain, but it really wasn't sitting in the pain. It was just integrating it into my life. It was recognizing it. It was giving it a voice. In either case, the practices, the meditation, the doing all of these different things, like I dove really deep into learning about my chakras and studied this. When I tell you I studied energy for years to know the different components, and there's electrical current that's flowing through our bodies. I also learned about my history in how I came to be, how my parents' relationship developed, what that was all about, because there was a lot of gray around that. Learning about my grandmother and her life and the hardship that she went through, learning about tidbits of my great-grandmother, and seeing how all of this connected, seeing how many of their stories and many of the things that they experienced were some of the things that either were very similar to what I experienced in my own life, or the surface of the experience was not the same, but the emotion and the thought process and the belief system was very similar. So I studied energy. I studied the history of me in order to really get at the root, because I knew that, as I had said in a previous video, therapy was helpful. I had to be honest in therapy. That was one thing. And I really was honest. When I got to a point where I said, I need to really address these things, I went to therapy and I started to be very, very honest, very clear up front. It was also that very expedited energy. Here's the things that happened to me and I need to work on this. We need to get it going. Not realizing that therapy, to really get the fruits out of it, is going to take some time. I've been with my current therapist for about 5 years now, 5-6 years. And we're not to say that the work that we've done before in the first couple of years was not important. It was laying the foundation, but now we are really getting into the nitty gritty of the work, because she has seen me over the years. She has seen how I am, how I respond, what I say, how I fall into certain patterns, where my weaknesses are, where my strengths are, so she can speak to those things from a place of knowing me over a period of time. I didn't want to give it time. I wanted the newness. I wanted the shiny, and I wanted the hurry up and let's get it go. Let's go and let's get it done. That's what I wanted. So therapy alone was not going to address and deal with all of the things that I needed to deal with. I also knew that there was a spiritual component that was just as, if not more important than the therapy. The therapy can most definitely help me in the physical realm and help me to understand my past and get me to integrate that past into my future. The spiritual component helped me to understand the things that were before me, but were definitely present in my life, definitely present in my bloodline, present in the way that I show up, because the way that certain behaviors got passed down, even though I may not have interacted with certain family members, this became just a trained, a learned behavior that went down through the generations. And there were two things that got me to a place of saying, okay, I need to make a change. I need to do something different. The first was that question, answer, recognizing, okay, can't keep doing this, can't keep running in these same circles. And the second was having children and seeing the things that I do be manifested in them in ways that I either wanted to rescue or save them from, not knowing that they learned those behaviors from me, or things that I was like, oh, why are you doing that? And those are things that they also learned from me. So it was a twofold. I had to really take time, and I appreciate being a parent. It is a very, very difficult, I don't want to say job. It's a very difficult role, because there's a constant reflection of how I'm showing up and how they're giving that back to me. All of this was a breakdown to build me back up. But I had to do the breakdown first. I couldn't ignore, I couldn't hide, I couldn't numb. I'd had to really, really tend to and address all of these things. And that was a slow process of breaking me down, stripping me down, to be able to look at myself and say, hey, what's going on here? What's that all about? When I think about that time now, as I was transitioning out of, okay, I'm no longer numbing, I now went into a lot of physical activity. I became super, super active in running, in boxing. I just dove headfirst into ways to get my body healthy. And I believe what was going on internally is, when I reflect on that time, and I did feel that in the moment, but when I think about it now and looking back at that time, I had to do something physical to shift the focus from numb to active momentum to go in some other direction. And physical activity for me just happened to be the thing to help me get into that other momentum, into that new groove. And I remember also around this time, I started, well, this was a couple of years after me getting into running and me getting into boxing and being very physically active. That's when I started going to therapy. And when I found my therapist and felt very comfortable with her and stayed with her, in the very beginning stages of us working together, I remember saying to her and to some people in my life, I don't know who I am without my trauma. I don't know who I am without my stories. I've been so tied and so connected to these stories that if I were to take them away, I don't know what I would stand on. And for me to come to that realization felt very scary. It also felt very sad, because I was now realizing that what I had been bolstering myself on, what I had been standing on as identity, was born out of trauma, was born out of sadness. And I did not want that, but I didn't know any other way to reframe or restructure my identity into something that was based in positivity. This goes back to the worthless, the worthy, unworthy topic that I was talking about in a previous video, of getting down to this pearl, this wisdom of, oh, these are all these other narratives, all these other things are really coming down to this core narrative. And truth be told, there are many different core narratives that I have, but that was the first one that I was able to recognize, was this unworthiness, worthlessness narrative. And to recognize that, oh my gosh, that's what I hitch my wagon to, that's what I believe in. Man, what do I do to change that? How do I not make that untrue, because it's not true, but how do I rest in the truth? How do I stand on the truth? How do I make that my identity? How do I make the truth of who I am more of my identity and what I stand on, rather than this other thing that's false and not true? So that transitionary period was extremely, extremely difficult, because it was this unknown of, oh, I really didn't recognize that maybe me being in this cocoon of shame and guilt and feeling less than, how that could have been affecting other people in my life, my relationships, the people that care about me and love me the most. Now I'm able to have conversations with people and look back and see how that affected them. And there can be honest work in accountability, or some sort of amend work that can be done for those people, if that's something that they want to do and want to be a part of. And I've been very open and honest about that. But that period of being in this spot, and I can see it in a visual, so I'm going to try to describe it in a visual as best as I can. I've often talked about this being this Kendall that was on one side of the river, and then there's another Kendall on the other side of the river, and the river is, the current is strong, the water's moving fast, there's rocks, it's like white water craziness, but I see the truer version of me on the other side of the river, and she is at peace, and she's beckoning me to come over. And I said, I don't know how to build a bridge. I don't know how to get over there. What do I do? How do I get over there? That used to make me so sad, because I was so desperate to connect with her. And I really didn't know how, but I yearned for that connection. I yearned to build that bridge. And I can honestly say now that not only has that bridge been built, I've crossed that bridge. Me and the true Kendall, we're now more integrated, and I can feel more secure in standing on the truth of who I am, rather than the false narratives. But that took time, and there was work that was involved, a lot of different pieces and components of work that I needed to do. But that was really that cracking. That was that first moment when I started to recognize, I think I need to do something different if I want to have the life of my dreams. And then once that started to happen, woo! I mean, everything around me did completely shift and change. And it still is changing. And it is taking time. And I've learned to be more patient in that time and not rush it and not say, hurry up, let's go. I mean, even just up until a year or 2 years ago, I was still in that, okay, let's hurry up and go. It keeps shifting from this thing to this thing. Maybe I've taken more time to be patient over here, but I find myself rushing over here. And in each phase of my life, I have to keep saying, slow down. It's okay. It's going to get taken care of. It's going to work itself out, but I cannot move at breakneck speed. That's only going to make things even worse. And I'm still going to make mistakes, and things are still going to be messy. There's nothing clean about the healing work. There's nothing clean about this life. I think it's meant to be messy. As difficult as that is for me to say and admit out loud, I think this life is meant to be messy, because in the mess is when we're able to see how we show up, how we can course correct, how we can love on ourselves, how loving on ourselves then extends to other people. It's a very humbling, and it's a very honest, and it's a very truthful, beautiful, loving journey. But it most definitely will test every single aspect of how you see yourself and how you show up. But it's possible. It can be done. All right, y'all. This has been a really wonderful video, and please like, comment, and subscribe. I thank y'all so much for watching. I thank you so much for commenting. Continue the comments, continue the likes. Please subscribe, and share these videos. And I'll catch y'all on the next video. Bye.